everyone, many thanks for joining this talk. My name is James Fraser-Murison. I'm the Director of Learning for the Creative Arts at Queen Mary's College. And all being well, I'm going to go through a brief presentation, you'll be pleased to know, on all things esports that links specifically to future careers, STEM subjects, and also specifically how we've brought in esports into Queen Mary's College in Basingstoke. All being well, you can hopefully see my screen. Can I just confirm with Margaret or whoever's there that screen's okay?
Yes, I can see it clearly. You
Fantastic.
sound a little bit soft though.
Oh, okay. I shall see how we get on. So as explained at the start, we'll take any questions towards the end of this presentation, if that's okay. And we'll give you a brief overview of what we're doing with regards to industry and the career, as I said. And other than that, let's see how we go. So just to give you an overview of who I am in a little bit more detail, as I've mentioned, I'm the Director of Learning at Queen Mary's College. I had the privilege of writing some units for the first ever Esports Btec in conjunction with the British Esports Association and also Pearson. I'm now a national trainer for the Esports Btec as well, which was confirmed this afternoon. I'm a member of the North American Scholastic Esports Federation, and for this year, and including some events of last year, I've helped discuss esports at World Education Week, Festival of Education that's coming this summer, Bet Asia towards the end of the year, and various other ideas that we have up our sleeve and future talks coming as well. I won't go through every point there, you'll be pleased to know, but it is worth noting that what we've been able to do in a 15 to 16th month program at Queen Mary's College, we've been in a fortunate enough position here to secure funding of around £250,000 to help create the first ever esports floor within 16 to 19 education. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that right now, but that's something I'll be able to discuss as we get into the presentation. But it's a wonderful, unique privilege that QMC has had to be able to build from this unique position, because as I say, there isn't anyone else in the position who's able to do that for us up and down the country, I should say. So just in case you are unsure, it's always a good idea to kind of check that we all know what subjects we're discussing. Esports or electronic sports is competitive video gaming. Its tournaments usually consist of amateur or professional gamers competing against one another for a cash prize. So one of the things I'd like to be able to debunk, if you will, during this presentation is the difference between esports as a professional sport and also something as pure escapism. And it is acceptable for both, for you to enjoy both and for you to do both as well. For parents out there as well who are wondering what the educational link is to esports within a BTEC framework, that's something we will go into in more detail here as well, because it will inexplicably lead to the future careers that are out there, jobs that haven't even been created yet, that we are hopefully preparing our students for, to enable them to be digitally ready for a brand new future. And obviously what the pandemic has done, unsurprisingly, has helped put esports into focus specifically in the last 12 months. So just to add a little bit more credence and credibility to all things esports, this is a report from the Department for Media, Culture and Sport from last summer. And again, I won't read word for word, but you can see that the government are aware of the importance of esports from the perspective of an industry and a business. And the UK is very well situated globally as a powerhouse for the gaming industry as well. And let's be perfectly honest, the Department of Media, Culture and Sport also realised that it will make the UK an awful lot of money. So it makes a lot of sense to be able to recognise that and back that. And also another relevant reason as to why it's in our current curriculum. What you're seeing now on the screen, and I won't go through all of these here, is the BTEC itself. And what we say to students who are wanting to join us, to people who possibly need to understand the framework and education perspectives behind the BTEC, you'll see that there are 20 units that are taught across a variety of BTEC courses.
James, can you move to the next slide?
move to the next slide.
I think you're on Department Media and Culture and Sports, summer 2020. I think you lost the one. I think you lost a slide.
Can you see? You should be looking at a slide of the BTEC units.
We have now, yes.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
perfect.
All right. My apologies. Not sure what's happened there. So hopefully, yes, as I say, you can see the units there of all the BTECs, all the BTEC units that we are going to be discussing in a little bit more detail. Now, what I say to parents, particularly who are unsure of the relevance, as I say, of the BTEC, is everywhere you see the word esports on these 20 units here, if you could consider replacing it with the word business. And then hopefully, once you use the word kind of business in replace of esports, you can see the relevance and the importance of the BTEC itself. There are a couple of units that I'd like to draw your attention to, specifically Unit 4. And Unit 4 is the health, well-being and fitness for esports players. We've made that a mandatory unit, hence why it's got an M here. This is what the M stands for. So any qualification involving the BTEC esports, all students must be able to cover and learn about Unit 4. Now, we understand that a lot of students will be sitting at home at probably ridiculous hours when they should certainly be asleep gaming competitively or not. And so therefore, it was important that the British Esports Association and Pearson brought in a very specific unit that covered mental and physical well-being with regards to relaxation and approaches to kind of yoga and Pilates, as funny as that may seem to begin with, because we want to look after those students, obviously. We are comparing the course to the industry itself, where you have professional esports players, you have nutritionists and physiotherapists and dietitians already, and regular kind of fitness coach themselves. So it's important that if we're going to prepare students for a course, maybe at degree level, that we cover this at post 16 as well. And also with regards to what you could do with your BTEC esports qualification, you could go on to do a degree in esports. We know that the University of Staffordshire in London's campus and also the Chichester University both offer degrees in esports. No doubt this coming September, there'll be one or two more. Certainly in a year and a half from now, I know that there's a couple of universities wishing to add esports to that. And so students are welcome to go and apply to that through the usual UCAS route, because this qualification does indeed carry UCAS points. Or what you can see from the units there, they could go on to a different strand and they could go and do a traditional university degree such as business or creative media, or dare I say English literature, any of those usual routes. This is nothing more than a stepping stone into higher education if they so wish. So hopefully you can see my next slide now, which is to do with the global esports audience. All being well, you can see the copious figures, the copious amounts of large numbers involved with people in the last full year. Sort of split between what's called an enthusiast or an occasional viewer, and on the side you can obviously see the difference between the two. It's important to note that yes, obviously there was a pandemic, we are aware of that, it's still going on obviously, but it's a year-on-year growth, so we were expecting 2020 to build on this, and understandably we'd expect 2021 and 2022 to continue to see a bigger audience, for the simple reason being more and more people are aware of this. The BTEC will in some form go to that, but also you'll see the likes of BBC are now reviewing and showing actual esports tournaments and competitions themselves. So specifically, really, in light of tonight's talk, there are some obvious links, I think, to teaching staff anyway, with regards to esports and STEM subjects. And if you're not too sure what a STEM subject is, that stands for science, technology, engineering, and or maths. So what I'm going to be able to share with you now, all being well, is an article from Forbes magazine, specifically this article here. And again, I'll put all the various links in this presentation for you towards the end. If anyone wants to have another look at this, you're more than welcome to do so. But you can see, hopefully, if we kind of scroll here, how STEM subjects very much rely on and encourage these various bullet points here. Now, I don't want to kind of misconstrue the information here. I'm not saying that if you were to do a science or engineering subject, you must do esports, or if you do esports, you are therefore an A-star student at maths. That's not what I'm saying at all, nor is anyone else. But we are saying that there are some obvious links when you think about this in the big picture, in terms of planning for now, and as I said earlier, planning for future jobs. So this is something that, as I say, I'll include in the presentation towards the end, and no doubt one or two of us here will be thinking whether this is a pertinent article or not. Now, what you'll hopefully also now be able to see as I've gone back into the presentation, some keen eyes amongst you may notice that there's another Forbes article here, which discusses the best 5 places for gaming jobs for this year. And it won't surprise you to hear that California and Silicon Valley are in the top 5, but also Stockholm, London, and a gold prize if you could work out that that was Guildford. So I brought that into the topic of conversation today just to let you know that the UK provides an awful lot of esports and gaming help and industry that is going in some small parts to the overall esports industry being worth close to 160 billion pounds, depending on how you split it. Now that is a phenomenal amount, and obviously I think it's another reason why we should be discussing the likes of this within education, that something could be quite niche and yet at the same time worth 160 billion, say, at the same time. You may know that your sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, or even yourselves are gamers in some form or another, and you'll know that there is a stigma involved to that, and you'll know that what you do and what you enjoy is a hobby for some, and there's absolutely no shame in that, of course. But what we are trying to do with this presentation is to create a kind of a better understanding of what esports is, and as I say, how it can kind of bring a certain resurrection of sorts to the UK economy, because we know that that's very much at a low point, but at the same time we know that it will be the industry, the esports industry, that will help raise that in some small part. As an aside, the esports industry in the UK makes more money than both film and the music industry combined, and that is based on the last 2 years worth of figures before COVID and the pandemic as well. And obviously not many people are going to the cinema these days, so the gap will widen, but it is in no small part to the likes of Guildford and of course London and Scotland in terms of what they're able to do for the global industry. So just to refer back to a little bit more detail on Unit 4, in terms of how much credence we give it within the BTEC unit, well, it's got something called guided learning hours. So give or take within a year, we want to get students to learn, study, homework included within this. A very large chunk of the BTEC will go towards this particular unit. And you can see the rationale behind this here. And again, on the next slide, all being well, it might be a little blurry for you. You can see the breakdown of that unit as well, and also the importance of being able to compare physical activity, mental and physical relaxation, well-being within that, so that it becomes good practice that students can then take outside of the classroom and apply to their day-to-day and beyond, obviously, all being well. So just to go back to how QMC have started on the esports journey, there'll be some names there that you may recognize, some possibly not. But what we have been able to do in the last 15 to 16 months with the launch of the Btec, but also the very brief overview I gave you of the new esports building, was to bring in local but also global businesses. Now, as I say, you will know some of them, and if you don't, I can assure you they're pretty big in the gaming and esports world, and they're giving up their time, and they're making very valuable contributions to the course and to the college, because they also see the benefit of this. Yes, of course, they understand that there might be some students that leave us and go to work for them in some form or another. But more importantly, they can see the relevance of this, because we are preparing, with their help, students to be prepared for a new world, a potentially scary new world for some of us, but a world that's going to focus on the digital skills that the Esports Btec brings. Come September, we're going to be offering 2 routes to study the Btec itself. A single vocational, which is in essence equivalent to 1 A-level, or the extended dip, which is the equivalent to 3 A-levels. And again, as mentioned, they all carry UCAS points and will enable students to go on traditionally to university if they so will. To give you an idea of its current popularity, although I can't promise that all of these students in terms of numbers actually convert and appear in September, hopefully you can see that there's significant difference in our current year to students that we are expecting in this coming September. So this again, I think shows we're on the right track. You will see that there are 12 or 13 colleges at the moment running the Esports Btec, with another, hopefully, I think 40 or 50 due to start this coming September. So again, you can see that although QMC is one of the trailblazers, we're doing the right thing, and that other colleges are starting to see the relevance of this. And obviously we're proud of those numbers, but as I say, we just got to hope they all turn up in September. What you're going to see now is the very bespoke esports floor, which again we're rightly proud of. We have a gaming hub, if you will, that will have 26 PCs. We've got down here 20, but we've just had confirmed this week that we're actually going to gain another 6 on top of that. So it's a wonderful problem to have as to where we put the other 6. A traditional teaching room here. Classroom 2 is going to become a yoga and a Pilates room, and that's going to be embedded within the weekly curriculum where we can. And we would encourage other students throughout college to use this, book this and use this room, because as we all know, a lot of us have just spent a year potentially hunched over our laptops or what have you during various meets and Zoom calls. And we want to be able to get students into the good habits I mentioned earlier. So we want to encourage the mental and the physical well-being aspect within this specific room. We've also had 1 or 2 people who want to use this room at the weekend and also hire out these rooms for gaming parties. So we're able to contribute to the local surroundings on a slightly different scale that isn't just your traditional Monday to Friday at college. So again, it's another aspect we're proud of and something that we can hopefully work with. That is what we hope the finished product, one of the rooms, will eventually look like. And yes, we are aware it's very dark, but that's in keeping with, I think, the industry itself. This is a logo in part from the QM Samurai, which one of our students designed, color scheme and all, where we managed to match it up. And one of the local companies who's providing our kit, which is Yo-Yo Tech, who are very much on board with what we're going and are supporting us with kit, but also enabling students to do work experience opportunities and potential apprenticeships as well. So again, we're very excited to bring in local employees and to provide work experience opportunities for our students. So just here on the screen, you'll see kind of where we started. We went, a colleague and I went to go and see the Esports Formula 1 event in December 2019, which now seems like a lifetime ago, where on a casual Wednesday night over in Chelsea, what you're looking at here is 2 View cinemas where the wall had been knocked down and turned into the final of the Esports Grand Prix event, where a 16-year-old casually won £250,000 on a school night. And that really kind of raised our eyebrows in terms of where we think we will be able to bring in a subject, but also at the time, nothing more than entertainment for our students as part of an enrichment. We were then able to get some gaming PCs and grow the enrichment there, where traditionally you have around 20 students turn up for a college enrichment. But what you saw here is closer to 65 students now for the last 2 years. And that's phenomenal. And that's brought us the attention of the British Esports Association, where now there's a group of 20 students who compete every Wednesday nationally in various esports events, which is phenomenal because there is no other element in education that really brings students together like this, where I've got maths and physics students working together with traditional business or media students to compete with other colleges in, say, Wales or Northumberland or Bristol. And we've created our own little ecosystem from that. And I think it's key for teaching staff to understand that students communicate and contribute in a slightly different way to how, say, we're used to. And being able to recognize that is one of the things that's made us quite successful, I'd say. And there's just some of our students in the very wonderful jerseys that were put together. And again, obviously, this is our current setup pre-COVID, I hasten to add, where they're wearing their lovely jerseys, but it's not quite as nice as the wonderful building we get to move into. So again, it shows with help from employers and the business elements and the understanding beside that, you can really grow this exciting course. This is an award the college won, where it received national recognition for putting the esports course together. So if there are teachers out there listening, by all means, please get in touch should you need any help with that. And I'm pleased to say that this trophy is our first trophy, hopefully first of many, that we won a couple of weeks ago for our first tournament that we put together outside of the British Esports Association, which I'll explain in a little bit more detail. And again, you can see what you're able to do during a lockdown when students are off-site and builders are very much on-site. So it's not quite finished yet, our wonderful building, but it's very much getting there. And all being well, we'll be able to see a little promo from the building company Saracen, who are very pleased with what they've been able to do because they've never worked on an esports building before either. And other than seeing a wonderful Henry Hoover being lit up by red fluorescent tubing, hopefully you can kind of see an idea of space and atmosphere and ambience, dare I say, that we're trying to create in order for students to get an understanding of the gaming industry. This will be an editing and a shoutcasting room where we'll be encouraging students to review their play and also bring in their own commentary to various games, which is another element to the overall career options that students may want to consider. Okay. So one of the questions that people may want to ask is specifically, how has the pandemic affected esports? Well, we know from previous slides that it's affected it positively in a sense that we're making a huge amounts of money now globally because it's brought a lot of people online and raised the interest if you weren't already a fan. And of course, if you were a fan, then you're potentially increasing your involvement in esports, whether that's playing or spectating on the likes of Twitch. What we were able to do during the pandemic, as I say, when the British Esports Association had stopped its fixtures due to COVID, we were approached by James Monroe's Raiding Raptors team over in California, I think, where our students competed on an international stage, the first of its kind, where again, in no other field or kind of history that I'm aware of, have students been able to do that. So obviously a lot of things were stopped during the pandemic, yet esports thrived in this, where our students were able to speak to other students in America about all things esports, compete online as well, have a kind of chat about kind of the education system and at the time the politics, which was an interesting conversation. And again, though, it was such a unique and wonderful experience that only esports was able to offer at the time. You'll also see here the overall winners, thankfully us, of a competition that we won, as I said, a couple of weeks back, where full credit to my students, with no help from me whatsoever. They used Discord, which is effectively a social media device, to speak to 3 or 4 other colleges and students and teams within those colleges to put on their own event, all off their own back, all done in the evening, and eventually the tournament itself was held on a Friday night. So again, they've created their own little ecosystems within ecosystems, And although we might consider that students these days don't communicate in a traditional way, or a way that we find useful, dare I say, there does need to be some credit and recognition that students have found potentially a different way to communicate with one another. And using Discord and using esports as a way of doing that, I think is a really positive event. That's something, as I say, we need to understand and recognize, and can only lead on to trying to help and understand this in a slightly more positive way for everyone as well. Again, you kind of, I won't go into all of these details here. You can all see that, but you're dealing with staggeringly high numbers. And again, it just refers back to reasons why I think we need to give this the recognition, or are giving this the recognition it deserves, because it's huge. We are aware that lots and lots of teenagers are gamers, or certainly watch gamers, and therefore it makes, again, an awful lot of sense to be able to relate this passion, this excitement, this industry, this huge global industry, into an educational framework. And what you'll see, hopefully, when we kind of look at the units again and get an understanding of that as to why we expect it to be important. Very briefly, before I sum up, you're looking at two of our team captains, and it's important I show you these, because potentially you're thinking, maybe wrongly, that you would be able to identify a typical, inverted commas, esports student. Well, if you take Joe, who's our team captain and led us to victory a couple of weeks ago, he does 4 A levels. He does maths, and he does chemistry, history, and music technology, and he's doing rather well. And and esports as the enrichment, as an extra on top of that. So he's able to do 4 A levels and still compete as part of an enrichment, which is one route. But also you can see Kira, who is another one of our captains, and she does the Esports Btec. And so hopefully you can see between the two of them that there is a certain amount of diversity, which we're very proud of, and also there isn't a traditional esports students in that sense. Now, what those students could go on to do jobs-wise, here on this screen is just one of many opportunities that our students have. They don't have to do any of those things, of course. They could go and do these things in a business degree or a media degree, or again, they could go into an apprenticeship or straight into employment if you want. But when I'm having conversations with, at times, students, certainly with parents, as I did last year and will be again next month when we have our open evening, I'll be able to say, we've got the industry backing, we've got the figures behind that, and now look at a potential route or several routes that your son or daughter could do with this ever increasing popularity behind this new, for some anyway, industry. So obviously I won't spend too long going through every single one of those points, but hopefully you can see how it's all broken down into specific areas and sub areas within that too. There is also what we say to students, just one of several, but this one is the one is our go-to, one of several job websites, which is specific to esports, again, as a career. It's called Hitmarker. You can see just down by the side that there are several ways of being able to identify a job. And just taking the home screen from earlier today, there's give or take 13,500 jobs out there, from Brazil to Mexico, Lisbon, if you look at those examples, or obviously you can narrow it down to London or the UK. And there are many different elements to the esports industry, as you saw from the previous slide, but also just from these examples here. And again, this is something that we talk about in our subjects now from a careers perspective. Before I sum up, I just thought I'd go back and show you the slides here. So again, you can now see, I hope, the relevance of the units. And again, might be easier to replace the word esports with business. So you can see now what we're preparing our students for in the 2 years with us, but also for future careers within this industry when they leave us. Whether it's Unit 17, Esports Law and Legislation, or shoutcasting, which is effectively commentary, or social media, we will cover all of that. What this course isn't is a course that will prepare you to be an internet sensation or a professional player. We deliberately don't have that because that's not what this course is about. It is purely about the industry, as I say, and the business elements behind that. When Pearson themselves came in to speak to our students 18 months ago, our students themselves are very clear that they didn't want that element in it because they do gaming per se in their free time or at home. They very much just want to see how the industry works. So in regards to most similar BTECs, you've got lots of elements within that course there that hopefully we can tick off for them there. QMC specifically deals with pathways to university and work experience opportunities, and also from September scholarships. And again, that's all being sort of given to us. We've been approached. We don't necessarily have to go and find people these days, which is a nice position to be in, and that's due to businesses understanding the industry. And again, it's something we would do in a traditional BTEC or A level, where we would offer work experience opportunities, and esports is in many respects no different to that. So final 2 slides from me, I believe. If people are interested and would like to know more, other than my email that was at the start, and I think it's coming up at the end as well, there's various people to do with esports at QMC that you may wish to follow. By all means, take a screenshot of that or follow away, and I can release that information in a week or so as well if people are interested. And if you so wish, there is my email address at the bottom if anyone would like to ask me questions at the end of this presentation at any point. So that's all things esports, and hopefully covers in a little bit of detail the industry with regards to STEM and obviously careers and the mental and the physical elements apart from that. So I will finish out there. Thank you.